part of an ayah where we are told truly God has purchased from the believers their property, their persons, themselves and their property, that paradise might be theirs. إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأن لهم الجنة. And we did go through the introduction, which was like a parable, and a parable is really a means to make some truth, something that is in the beginning not familiar to us, to make it a little bit more familiar. Or you can think about it like a telescope to look at something that is far away. And here far is metaphorical in the sense that it's not far in space, but in vision, in insight, in emotionally and spiritually. We are not used to perceive things in a certain way. And so the author tells us that this ayah is reminding us of how profitable a trade it is and how honorable a rank it is to sell one's person, one's self, and one's property to God and to be his worshipper. It means to be his bondsman. It means to be connected to him only. And in the metaphor or the comparison that he uses, we were told that the king, meaning a sovereign, in his infinite mercy sends a noble lieutenant, and here this represents, we will understand later, the messenger, the messengers, but as far as we are concerned, it's the last messenger, Muhammad ﷺ, peace and blessings be upon him. And by means, and he communicates with us, these sovereigns communicates by means of a compassionate decree, and this is what is conveyed. And the compassionate decree alludes to the Quran, and we know that the main attributes that is emphasized in the Quran is rahmah, which is compassion, love, compassionate love, mercy. And the Prophet is sent as rahmah, as a means of compassion and mercy. And the message is sent as a means of compassion and mercy. And the author says, so one, well, this is what he literally actually writes. Sell me the property. So it's actually, since he's talking about the ayah, it's actually the sovereign, God speaking to us. Sell me the property you now hold in trust. So here trust is most important, so that I may keep it for you. Let it not be destroyed for no purpose. It means it's going to be destroyed anyway. Let it not be destroyed for no purpose. After the wars, and the wars here we will see represents a worldly transience, and everything is changing constantly and passing. So after the wars are over, so there is nothing political about this as it was mentioned that time. It's just like if we stay truly ponder and meditate and reflect on the nature of this worldly life, which is transience, then it's worse than actually wars from an initial perspective, when we don't know what's going on, when we have not found that point of support, that permanence, when we don't know our creator, our maker, our sustainer yet, then it seems like everything is very fragile and everything is, there is nothing to anchor us, to anchor our life to anything, nothing to hold on. It's actually worse than war. It's like living in a vacuum, and in that vacuum, we can't have a sense of, not only a sense of safety and security, we can't even really have a sense of purpose and meaning. And that's why usually what we do, we bracket out that reality of transience, and we live in the illusion that there is some kind of permanence, some kind of stability. And that's what affords us a false sense of meaning and purpose. And it is very painful when we are reminded of that reality, when something happens and wakes us up to the reality of transience, the reality of death, the reality of constant change. But that pain is what pushes us to look for true meaning, true anchoring, true grounding, through permanence. So if we look for, if we avoid the initial discomfort and hang on to a fake and false comfort and false meaning and false purpose and false permanence, then we will never wake up from the deep delusion of mindlessness, of ghafla. And then we can never truly feel the need for permanence and the need to ask for guidance, ask for who we are, what we are doing here, and who sent us here, who is sustaining existence and life here and now. So there is no way we can truly connect to our maker, our creator, God. And God remains like a some information, something that does not have a relevance to our life here and now. So why I said this is because this has not, these wars and things has nothing to do with politics or anything like that. This author is really speaking about our reality here and now. And if it seems like it's an exaggeration, it's because we have not, we don't have yet a we have not sat down with the reality of this life before and after belief, before and after knowing God. And there is no way to know God and connect to Him and feel the need for His guidance, feel the need for the guidance of the prophets and the messengers and the Quran, unless we go through the first reality check, which is not easy to sit with that reality in the beginning. But if we want to skip steps, it doesn't work. We will be just deceiving ourselves, and it then seems like this is an exaggeration. Actually, it's the other way around. It's not an exaggeration. Actually, this is the reality of life before we know God. The reality of life on its without permanence, when we have not found yet the source of permanence, the reality of impermanence and transience and death without permanence is really worse than wars. So he says, sell me the property that now you hold in trust so that I may keep it for you. Let it not be destroyed for no purpose. After the wars are over, I will return it to you in a better condition. So we have, it's already a trust. It's already going to be destroyed. And if you don't give it to me, you won't be able to hold it. So it will be destroyed for no purpose. And if or when we give it, we sell it, we sell the trust to its owner, it will be returned to you in a better condition than before. And I will regard the trust as your property and pay you a high price for it. So something unbelievable is going on here. As for the machinery and the tools in the workshop, they will be used in my name and at my workbench, but the price and the fee for their use shall be increased 1,000-fold. So there is like guaranteed a warranty that everything will increase in value, and not like 10% or 20%, but 1,000-fold. And you will receive all the profit and accrues. There is nothing to pay. It was not ours in the beginning, but you'll get not 1,000-fold of its value and receive all the profit that accrues. You are indigent and resourceless. Like, if you don't do this, you yourself have no resources. You don't have the strength to take care of this trust, and you are unable to provide the cost of these great tasks. So let me assume the provision of all expenses and equipment and give you all the income and the profit. So like, this is something beyond generosity, beyond compassion, beyond subhanAllah. And we will see what it means in real life, how it applies to our life. So let me assume the provision of all expenses and equipment and give you all the income and the profit. You shall keep it until the time of demobilization. And here demobilization is death, the leaving this worldly life. So see the 5 ways in which you shall profit. Now, if you don't sell me the property, this is something that is a recurrent theme in the Quran, is that there is no neutrality. When we are not profiting, we are losing. When we are not connected to God, we are disconnected from reality. We are living in the delusion of ghafla, of mindlessness. When we are not in a state of believing in the truth, then we are believing in untruth. Now, if you don't sell me the property, you can see that no one is able to preserve what he possesses, and you too will lose what you now hold. It will go for nothing, and you will lose the high price I offer, the delicate and precious tools and scales, the precious metals waiting to be used. We also all lose all value. So you will lose all the benefits. At the same time, it's everything not only will not reach 1,000-fold in value, but will lose even the value that it has now. You will have the trouble and concern of administering and preserving, but at the same time, you will be punished for betraying the trust. So we will be struggling to take care of our life on our own, find a meaning, make up a meaning and a purpose, and at the same time, there will be the punishment, which is like the losing the real purpose and the real meaning, and finding out that we betrayed the trust because in the beginning it was a trust. So this trust word, term or concept is very important. So see the 5 ways in which you may lose. And then this is the parable, and then it's applied to our life, and we are told, "O soul, full of caprices, look at the face of truth through the telescope of this parable. As for the king, the sovereign, he is the monarch of pre-eternity and post-eternity, your Rabb, your sustainer and creator. And the estates, the machinery, the tools and scales are your possessions while in life's fold. So the possessions is not primarily, it's not like your home or some property out there, but your body, your spirit, your heart within those possessions, and your outward and inward senses, such as the eye and the tongue and intelligence and imagination. As for the most noble lieutenant, it is the noble messenger of God, and the most wise decree is the wise Quran, which describes the trade we are discussing in this area. Truly, God has purchased from the believers their persons and property, that paradise might be theirs. And the surging field of battle is the tempestuous surface of the world. It means that this worldly life, which ceaselessly changes, dissolves and reforms, and causes every human being, the original is insane, human being, to think, since everything will leave our hands, since everything is passing and leaving, and it will perish and be lost, is there no way in which we can transform it into something eternal and preserve it? So this is a question that we may not articulate in words, but it is something, a desire, a longing in everyone. Because we have been created to long for permanence and to dislike and fear impermanence. So the more we have things that we cherish, that leaves us and perish, and we know if that it will be our turn to also leave, and we are living, like our life does not end all at once. It is already in a state of constant flow of passing and perishing. So there is this inner existential desire and longing for finding a way to transform this situation into something eternal and preserving our everything we cherish. While engaged in these thoughts, human being suddenly hears the heavenly voice of the Quran saying, indeed, there is a beautiful and easy way which contains 5 prophets within itself. What is that way? To sell the trust received back to its true owner. Such a sale yields profit 5-fold, and we went through the first and the second. The first is that transient property becomes everlasting for this waning life. When given to the eternal and self-subsistent Lord of glory and spent for his sake, will be transmuted into eternity. And at that time I said, it will be explained in the 3rd prophet, how do we spend something for his sake, so that it will yield eternal fruits. The moment of one's life will apparently vanish and rot like kernels and seeds. So it seems like everything is perishing, but it says actually they are potentially seeds and kernels. So when the seeds and the kernel rots, it gives birth to something, a new creation. But then the flowers of life, of blessedness and auspiciousness will open and bloom in the realm of eternity, and each will also present a luminous and reassuring aspect in the intermediate realm. And the second prophet is the high price of paradise is given in exchange. So here, the whole assumption from the beginning is that our property and ourselves and everything we can think of is a trust. This needs to be clear, because if it's not clear, then what we'll read will not resonate with us, and it will not hit something within us. It will not meet a need within us. And therefore, it will remain as information that does not really speak to me. So the fact or the reality that everything is a trust needs to be first acknowledged. Because if it's not a trust, if it feels, of course, I am not talking about knowing, but although knowing is necessary, it's the necessary first step, but we have to take it further so that knowledge becomes, or that information becomes true knowledge, becomes an experiential knowingness, certitude. We know for sure it is our reality that everything is a trust. So first, we learn it this way by talking about it. Second, we need to keep remembering this reality. And we keep remembering it, not only, for instance, put a sticker on the fridge and remember, that won't really change our life. We have to reflect, meditate, contemplate until we feel it in our heart and in our soul, and surrender, accept that reality. Say, yes, this is what it is. It means we accept it, because I may realize that reality, but fight it and resist it and say, it may be the reality, I'm not going to accept it, and I'm going to ignore it. So
Dr. Yamina, if I can just add a comment that just came to my feelings just now.
Please.
Subhanallah, like I remember doing some research and trying to look up like ways to not take things personal, and like such wise advice that people give, even in a secular way, is just never take things personally. Nothing is ever personal. And it never really resonated with my feelings. And I would always find myself struggling with this, with things that were going on. And subhanAllah, like as you were talking, I'm like, wow, this is the secret that solves, like the key that makes everything make sense to me, because we have been coming to this deep realization that nothing is ours and everything is passing. In the first Ya Baqi Anta al-Baqi, Ya Baqi Anta al-Baqi series that we did, really made that very clear, that nothing is ours. We're severing ties with the horizontal. Nothing belongs to us. Everything is passing. And now, after receiving that, and now entering this, and when you said our feelings, our outer senses, our inner senses, our spirit, everything is a trust that needs to be given back. I felt like loads lifted off of my chest with relief, because I'm like, wow, nothing is mine. Then nothing is to be taken personal. Everything belongs to you. And what a relief to to give these back and just observe them. And like you always say, like say yes to them, but it's very hard to say yes to something you don't like. But when you realize it's a trust and it doesn't belong to you anyway, it seems so much easier to do that.
Inshallah, yeah. So that's very important, because if we don't go through that that training, that how we would call it, that journeying to come to that acceptance, that realization and acceptance, then without realizing, it feels like everything is ours, it's mine. And if deep down it feels like life and everything is mine, then even when I hear an offer, such a generous, such a magnanimous, such a compassionate offer, I mean, it's foolishness not to accept it. It does not seem generous. It seems even like burdensome and unfair, like because even because in that state we cannot have certainty of akhirah, of life after death. So even if someone tells me, do it for the sake of after death, I will, at the best, I will negotiate. I will feel like, okay, I will give, it's like an investment. I invest a little bit of my life for the sake of after death, to secure my after death. But the rest of it, of course, I can't give everything back to God. I mean, he may have given me life, but like, come on, it's mine now. I have to choose for myself. I am going to do what I feel and think is best for me. How can I feel like it feels like, well, you can see in this scenario that we have, that we live with without questioning, how many holes there is in it. Because how do I know? I don't know what's best for me. I don't know what, even I don't know what's the best thing that will make the best of my life, how to use or spend my time, my life, that will make me most fulfilled here and now, and even in what I imagine is the future. So all that is based on lots of unquestioned false assumption, but it feels like it's unfair. So at the most, without realizing, we negotiate within ourselves and we think we give like a little of our time as if to God, and the rest is for myself. But the reality is, everything is a trust. And when I sell the trust back, it means when I realize that it is only a trust, that it is not mine, I also realize that I don't know what to do with it. So actually, I should be the one begging and asking, please help me. What shall I do? I have no idea where I'm heading, what to do with this life. Yes, I have a sense of, I want peace, I want happiness, I want meaning, I want purpose, I want fulfillment, but I don't know how to achieve that so that it's true fulfillment, so that it's meaningful. So I should be the one looking for help. And when the help comes, then I truly appreciate it. And it's not like there is part goes to, it's not for God, it's for me. It's me who needs it. He does not need anything. He does not need me to give the trust back. He's saying, when you do this, you will get the trust back as if it's yours. It means you are the one who will benefit from this transaction. It's not God who is benefiting. God does not need my transaction. So this is very, very important for us to realize this. Otherwise, we won't appreciate what's going on in the message of this ayah, the guidance here, that it's a key guidance, how much healing, how much light there is in this message, and let alone being unfair or burdensome, it's like suddenly someone says, I have the key to all your issues. I have the answer to all your questions, and it is done unto you. It's not like everything will be shown to you. Subhanallah. So this is very important, and there is only one way to understand that everything is a trust, and to remember the reality that everything is a trust, and that's to face the reality of transience. Because when we face the reality of transience, if my life is transient, it means I have no control over it. It means it is coming from somewhere else, and it's just coming through me, and it's leaving without me. I can't do anything about it. I'm totally helpless about that. Then that is when I face and experience the reality that everything is a trust and not mine. I am not the owner of anything. And eventually that's how I get to also acknowledge the true owner of everything, the true sovereign, the one who has everything in control. So this transience is really key. Constant change, everything is flowing, everything is perishing, everything is passing. It seems at first sight like something very uncomfortable, very disturbing, very painful, but the more we sit with it and the more we listen to the explanation of the Quran, it tells us the meaning of transience, the more transience becomes the door onto permanence, the door onto the true owner of all the beautiful names, all the attributes that we long for in this world, the attributes and the qualities that makes us sad when they leave and perish. So it is our road, our connection to the source of all being, all perfection, all goodness. It is the door to connect to our true sustainer, the sustainer of all worlds. So it's very, very important to reflect on the meaning and the reality of transience. First, we need to also welcome that pain, that grief, that sadness, because it's that sadness that's going to make us awaken within us the need for permanence, the need for guidance, the need for true meaning, true purpose. And so then when we hear the message of the Quran, when we hear the guidance of the Prophet, we are ready to receive it, or at least to try it and eventually to appreciate it. Inshallah. If you want, we can start with the third prophet, inshallah, unless you have something to share.
Oh, can you hear me?
This was since it's been, I think, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I don't remember, I think 2 weeks. So this was like a summary and a reminder of what we did.
So, Dr. Yamina, I had a question that came to mind.
Please.
I've kind of been in the process yeah, I think I like, as this is unfolding for me, I'm watching, I'm keeping an eye out, observing myself where I try to take ownership for things and
Mhm,
making the intention to like let go, let go.
mhm.
And I notice what happens is there's a voice that will come and say, "Oh, like you can let go now, but something's going to happen in the future and you're going to have a hard time letting go." Um I don't I don't know, it's interesting that that's kind of like sometimes I feel, there's things in front of me that I can let go. Maybe it's again this fear of what's going to come and my inability to let go. So maybe I'm like taking ownership for it again. Um, but yeah, it's just kind of interesting that that comes up as well for me.
So here there are two things going on. One is we're only responsible for now. Second, all kinds of thoughts or anything can come to our mind. What matters is that if we, or the moment we question, is this true or not? Is this relevant or not? The moment we question, it means the moment we make the intention, we wake up, we become aware, so we are not in ghafla anymore, then it's very easy most of the time. And if it's not clear, then we can just keep it aside until it becomes clear. But usually you can realize that this is a distracting thought. It's not leading you anywhere. So what do you do with it? There is no need to try to push it away, to answer it, to solve it, resolve it, because it's anything can come to my mind. I don't have to answer everything. Because while I'm busy, if I busy myself answering all those things, I will distract myself from the destination, from the istiqamah, from the path that I am seeking. So what I do, I focus on the path, I focus on the now, I focus on the true questions that lead me to find the solution, to find my rock, to find permanence. And the other questions or thoughts or whatever, they will remain in the background. And eventually, the more I'm focused on the right path, the more they become, they recede in the background. It's like in life, there may be other noises going on in a room, but when we intend to listen to one sound particularly, then the other sounds, we can usually filter them out, and eventually they fade away. They don't have power over us anymore. And what we focus on becomes what becomes our how do I say? What we focus on becomes our reality, becomes what I deal with. And the others, I'm not responsible for that. And eventually that will change. It will change, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you.
You're welcome. So can someone read the third prophet, inshallah? Bismillah.
I can go ahead and do it.
Thank you.
Let me see. Okay. Bismillah. The value of each limb and each sense is increased 1,000-fold. The intelligence is, for example, like a tool. If you do not sell it to God Almighty, but rather employ it for the sake of the soul, It will become an ill-omened, noxious, and debilitating tool that will burden your weak person with all the sad sorrows of the past and the terrifying fears of the future. It will descend to the rank of an inauspicious and destructive tool. It is for this reason that a sinful man will frequently resort to drunkenness or frivolous pleasure in order to escape the vexations and injuries of his intelligence. But if you sell your intelligence to its true owner and employ it on his behalf, then it will become like the key to a talisman, unlocking the infinite treasures of compassion and the vaults of wisdom that creation contains. It will thus rise to being a dominical guide, preparing its owner for eternal bliss. To take another example, the eye is one of the senses, a window through which the spirit looks out on this world. If you do not sell it to God Almighty, but rather employ it on behalf of the soul by gazing upon a handful of transient, impermanent beauties and scenes, it will sink to the level of being a pander to lust and the concupiscent soul. But if you sell the eye to your all-seeing maker and employ it on his behalf and within limits traced out by him, then your eye will rise to the rank of a reader of the great book of being, a witness to the miracles of dominical art, a blessed bee sucking on the blossoms of mercy in the garden of this globe. Yet another example is that of the tongue and the sense of taste. If you do not sell it to your wise creator, but employ it instead on behalf of the soul and for the sake of the stomach, it sinks and declines to the level of a gatekeeper at the stable of the stomach, a watchman at its factory. But if you sell it to the generous provider, the sense of taste contained in the tongue will rise to the rank of a skilled overseer of the treasuries of divine compassion, a grateful inspector in the kitchens of God's eternal power. So look well, O intelligence, see the difference between a tool of destruction and the key to all being, and look carefully, O eye. See the difference between an abominable pander and the learned overseer of the divine library. And taste well, O tongue, see the difference between a stable doorkeeper or a factory watchman and the superintendent of the treasury of God's mercy. Compare all other tools and limbs to these, and then you will understand that in truth the believer acquires a nature worthy of paradise and the unbeliever a nature conforming to hell. The reason for each of them attaining his respective value is that the believer, by virtue of his faith, uses the trust of his Creator on his behalf and within the limits traced out by him, whereas the unbeliever betrays the trust and employs it for the sake of the instinctual soul. Sorry, lost my voice at the end.
Thank you, Zahra. Sorry, I was checking some of the words, like at the end, the instinctual soul is an nafs al-amara, and things like that. Words that are known in the Islamic literature usually. So this third prophet is, I think it gives some key answers to what does it mean to sell our property or ourselves and property back to God. And it also answers what we usually mean using something for the sake of God. Some of the words are, I'm not sure, it's because of the translation as well, but I think it should be okay. the intelligence here is aql. So aql is really the intellect. So it's more than just intelligence. Intelligence is one quality of the aql, I think. Wallahu a'lam. But at least if we remain more faithful to the original, I think it may be better. So it starts with saying the value of each limb and each sense is increased 1,000-fold. This was told to us in the parable. Like, not only when we sell the property back to God, He takes care of it and it increases in value 1,000-fold. Because the fact that God takes care of it for the conscious believer, the true believer, will realize that when we realize that everything is a trust, we realize that actually we're not taking care of anything. Actually, someone is taking care of it. However, it's not only that he's taking care of it, but there is something that everything will increase in value. What does it mean? And he's giving examples, and the first example is the intellect is, for example, like a tool. So this, the intellect being as a tool, is repeated. Imam Nursi says it in other places, and you can understand this because in the Quran we know that aql is not used as a verb. Some translate it as intellect and some translate it as reason. And it does not appear in the Quran as a noun, but as a verb. It means an action, an activity. And it is an activity of the heart. And so the intellect is a tool of the heart. This is many Muslim thinkers. This is how it is viewed. And if we really look how reasoning happens, it always reasoning always has to take place after we have some premises that we take for granted. Those premises, it's not reason that construct them. They are already there, and those are, whether you call them beliefs, or those beliefs are something that the heart is going to, if we want to change them, they change at the level of the heart. And that's what Ibrahim alayhi salam does when he says, La uhibbul afilin, when he's looking for a sustainer. And then he says, I do not love what sets, because once we don't love what sets, and then we start justifying it and producing all kinds of reasoning and justifying why something passing, for instance, is not good for us. But all that, there is an underlying premise, an assumption that reason does not question, but the heart can either confirm or question. That's why reasoning is an activity, is a tool that works for the sake of the heart. When it's not working for the sake of the heart, it's working for the sake of the ego. So ego is again feelings, but unconscious, or let's say when we are living at the level of the ego. He's saying here, the intelligence or the intellect is like a tool. If you do not sell it to God Almighty, but rather employ it for the sake of the soul. The soul here is nafs. So nafs is sometimes translated as spirit, sometimes as soul, self, ego. It's actually, it depends on the context. But here it means when we are not consciously selling it to God, we are unconsciously using for our own self. This nafs, the soul here, I don't want to go into the details, but let's say it has many connotations and it's used in the Quran as meaning, for instance, all human beings are created from one single soul, single self, spirit, you can say. But it's also, there are also hints that there is a transformation, that there are stages in the self as we grow. It becomes, as we grow in awareness, this nafs, this soul, is called or is at different stages. And one of the stages is an-nafsul ammaratu bis-su', which here is translated as instinctual soul, usually translated as evil commanding soul, which is mentioned in the Quran. And at that level, it's a level where we identify with our desires, with our appetites, with our fears, with our anger, to the point of becoming subjugated to them. We identify with them. This is who I am, it feels. And it feels, or we believe at that level, we believe that this wants and impulses and constitute who we are. And so it seems to us reasonable, or like it seems like there is no other alternative except that we attend to our wants and desires. And so our whole life becomes geared towards satisfying our wants and striving to fulfill them at all costs. And this is the lower self. And when we are at this, our awareness is at this level, we are unaware of our other or potential higher selves. And those potential higher selves are going to be to, how do you say, come up the more we become, or we cultivate our awareness through training, through following some guidance, through so that the potential of the spirit, of the soul, discloses within, and until it becomes what we call the spirit, which is the essence of being human, the essence, the spirit that God breathes into us. And so at the beginning, when we are at the level of, let's call it ego, or this nafsul ammaratu bis-su', the evil commanding soul, it's called commanding because this nafs, this soul, rules over us because we are totally unaware. We have given all our will to it, because we totally identify with those wants and desires. And so it's in a way rules over us and dominates our sense of selves. And it commands, that's why it's commanding. It commands and we execute the commands, and we become trapped into this mindless or heedless identifying with our wants and impulses. And the next level is a nafsul lawama, or the blaming, the self-reproaching soul. And this blame indicates an inner struggle, an awareness that something is going on. Not all wants and desires needs to be fulfilled. And so there is a tiny distancing ourselves from those wants and desires, because now we are making a distinction that not all, whatever comes to my mind, is to be pursued. And it means there is a little higher awareness of a reality beyond our immediate impulses and short-sighted desires, if we may call them. And so this self-reproach, this self-criticism, is an attempt to improve. There is something higher. There is a little bit of light. In the Quran, the next step is the third level is a nafs al-mutma'inna. How do you translate it? The satisfied, let's say, soul. And we are told it's in a paradise kind of state. So it's in inner peace. It has truly discovered its true identity of being abd, of being worshipper of God, of being totally dependent of God, and it truly has surrendered to God as its sustainer.
The content soul.
Oh, the content, yes, thank you. That's a better translation, yeah. And within the Islamic tradition, there are many paths where they have identified some stations where we go through this journey from the lower to the highest, to this content soul that is at peace and that is pleased and pleasing. With God. So here, when he's saying for the sake of the soul, it's a soul that is unaware. Basically, it doesn't matter where it is, but it's not a soul that is on the path of seeking nearness to God. Once we start going on the path, the awareness starts growing, and then we start getting to know who God is. Our iman, our belief also starts going, and we start our ihsan, our awareness of living in the presence of God starts growing. That journey is a journey from one perspective, it is a journey of selling the trust back to God. From one perspective, we can look at it as it's a journey where when we are surrendering back to God, it means handing the trust back to its real owner. Because when we are not doing that, without realizing, we are appropriating his trust. We're claiming ownership of something that we don't own. We are living in a lie. And the essence of shirk is lying about our reality, about the reality of life, about God. And what is iftira, Maha?
assumption, iftirad,
افتراء.
to assume, assumption.
افترى على الله.
Create
Oh,
a lie. Create a lie.
to transgress.
Yes, but when you talk about someone, and it's all these things.
Slander, maybe slander.
Maybe slander, like yeah, slander, if we want to make it in a strong way, because it's a word that's used a lot about people who are unaware of the signs in the creation. They are unaware that the creation is signs. And part of the creation is our own creation. And not knowing or not being aware that everything is a trust is the other side of this reality, is not being aware that they are signs. They are there with meaning, purpose, messages, with guidance for us how to live our life. So he's saying the aql, the intellect, is like a tool. If you do not sell it to God, so what is the alternative? Employ it for the sake of the soul, but here it's the lower soul, the unaware soul. It will become an ill-omened, noxious, and debilitating tool that will burden your weak person with all. So what's the burden here, and why is it? Because of the sad sorrows of the past and the terrifying fears of the future. I mean, because we have an intellect, so that's why I said it's not only intelligence, because part of the intellect is lots of things. Because we remember the past, and not only we remember it, but we very quickly, more than just reason, intuitively, we deduce things about from the past about the future, etc. So there is the sorrows of the past and the fears of the future. So it becomes a tool that is burdensome. And then it will descend to the rank of an inauspicious and destructive tool. It is for this reason that a sinful man will frequently resort to drunkenness. And here drunkenness is not necessarily like alcohol drunkenness, but it could be drunkenness of anything. Keeping ourselves busy to try to forget what seems to us reality, the sorrows, the sad sorrows of the past, and the anxieties and the fears of the future, the darkness of the past and the future seems to us to be the reality when we are living in ghafla, in heedlessness. And so in order to get a break from that, we keep ourselves busy with something. That's kind of drunkenness. Or frivolous pleasure, seeking pleasure. Anything that is not lasting is going to be frivolous. Anything that is not connected to, I don't want to say connected to God, because then it becomes like we think we know what it means, but actually we don't know what it means. But here I mean to permanence, to akhirah, but also to akhirah in the sense of to eternity. It means connected to the source, connected to the beautiful names of God. And we can take it to what he's going to say about the eye, for instance. You see something, a beautiful scenery. Let's say the sunset somewhere. Even that can be frivolous if it does not lead any, it does not have a meaning beyond. If it's just and nice. I love the sunset. Sunset is beautiful. So, and then it ends, and actually, again, as soon as it ends, it becomes past, and it becomes sad sorrow. And in order to forget it, immediately we want to keep busy with something else. Because deep down, as Ibrahim alayhi salam says, لا أحب الآفلين. I do not love what sets and what passes away and perishes. So even something seemingly as innocent as looking at a beautiful sunset, if it does not lead us to the source of beauty, to the creator, to the one who created that, because it's not only the sun setting out there, but the fact that we enjoy it and appreciate it, because it could be out there and I would have no sense of appreciating it. The bigger area, the bigger miracle is the fact that something is seemingly happening out there, but actually it totally is related to me inside in ways that are beyond my grasp and beyond my imagination, because they are beyond reason. They are, I can feel them in the heart, and it's only the spirit that can acknowledge that reality. And that sunset is not something out there, that we're all part of one reality. And in that interconnected reality is the area that speaks, is the messenger that speaks about God, that awe that I feel in response to something seemingly happening out there. But if I don't sit and reflect on this reality, if I just say, oh, beautiful, and then without me noticing, that awe is replaced with sorrow and sadness and grief. And that's why immediately we look for something new, because I don't want to do what to do with the sadness of something beautiful passing, something that I appreciated, something that moved my heart and spirit, and suddenly it ends. So I just want to say here that it's what we are thinking of is everything has a meaning, and it is connected to beyond, transcends this world, or remains here, and everything is in darkness. And I can only imagine it as living in a bubble and running from one situation to another, seeking some pleasure in something, but it doesn't last long. And not only the pleasure doesn't last, but when it ends, there is sorrow and sadness. So I run away from that sadness as well. And so it's a life of running away from oneself, from the reality. That's when we are in disconnection. That's when we are living for the sake of the soul. And it seems like we are looking for gratification. And this gratification is not only looking for something that feels good, but also and primarily avoiding what feels bad, avoiding the sorrow of the past, of the passing, and the fear of the future. So these two go together. And there is only one way of breaking this vicious cycle, this bubble of darkness and delusion and meaninglessness, is to stop and face the reality. That reality is the messenger that will connect us to God, to the source of all meaning and purpose. And then we start living with the consciousness, with the awareness that things are coming from him with a message. And so we are actively reading the messages. And so part of the reading the messages is we are selling. We'll talk about the selling because that's what we're talking about here. Is it okay until the terrifying fears of the future? And he says then it, meaning the intelligence, the intellect, will descend to the rank of an inauspicious and destructive tool. Can you imagine? Like, that's why people, like, they don't want to truly, now we're not thinking here is not thinking, philosophizing, or thinking, calculating things. And no, we're here, it's true thinking. What is the meaning of this? What's going on? That is something that seldom people will get involved in. People don't think, most people don't think, and most people don't want to think. And if you open a discussion to through true thinking and not gossiping about things, then there is lots of resistance because it feels like we are going to face something that is painful. But we have to face that reality to see what's behind it. So we'll frequently resort in order to get over this destructive tool to drunkenness of frivolous pleasure in order to escape here is the word, the vexation and injuries of his intellect. But if you sell your intellect to its true owner, so there is a selling, yet you are selling it to the true owner. It's not like even, you're not selling something that belongs to you, and employ it on his behalf, then what happens? It will become like the key to a talisman, unlocking the infinite treasures of compassion and the vaults of wisdom that creation contains. It means now it's going to be used in reflection, because when we are reflecting, yes, we reflect with the heart, but reason is always involved, because whatever comes to our heart, we want to make sense of it. And that's why when we use our reasoning and the intellect is involved. And then it is a key to the talisman, that what seems to be the riddle of life starts unfolding. And the infinite treasures usually refer to the beautiful names of God, the qualities that we long for, the meaning that gives meaning and purpose to our life, the treasures of compassion and wisdom, because only that is wisdom. Anything that does not take us back to the beautiful names of God, to permanence, is not wisdom. If it is not permanent, it can't be wisdom that creation contains. It means this reason, this intellect is going to be used to uncover the meaning of creation. And the first revelation is Iqra, recite, read, and it's read, but Iqra, qara'a in Arabic means read meaningfully. Because you can read just like a recitation without, I mean, most non-Arabic speakers, when they recite the Quran, they don't understand. I mean, Arabic speakers may understand some, and some may not understand everything either, because it's not only about understanding the literal meaning, but more, but even the literal meaning. Most will recite, that's not qira'ah. Qira'ah is when you read, and read assumes that we are understanding what we are reading. And in Arabic, because the vowels are not part of the script, they have to be added. You have to understand in order to put the vowels, the diacritical marks correctly. So, and that's why Quran means what is read. What is read means what is understood. And it says, Iqra, read, read meaningfully, understand the meaning. Bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. So read, what is reading? In the name, what is read is not told to us, but the answer is in what comes after, because it says, in the name of your Rabb, your sustainer, who creates. So it is related to the creation. Remember, when this is the first revelation, it means the first Quran, and there is no, the rest of the Quran as we know now is still not there. So it's not read the Quran, go and recite the Quran. Although later we understand that in order to read what our Rabb is creating now, we need the guidance of the Quran. Makes sense that this comes at the beginning. It's very, there's lots of wisdom in it, because once I say, okay, I'll go and read in the name, where is the name? It means not in my name, not in the name of things. Where is the name of God here? Where is God in this creation, in this sunset? Then I have to ask, I don't know, how do I read? That's how I feel the need for the guidance, for divine guidance, for the Quran.
Dr. Yamina?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that there's a lot of advice that's being given, and I find myself just digesting it and just trying to sort of maybe like repeat what so far is what came to me, and then I also have a question. So I really think that this, or feel that this discussion is foundational for me, and really helping me put other pieces that we've talked about. It just seems like this was the missing foundation that everything else is built upon. So for me, it makes sense that before anything can be an ayah, or we can read the meaning into anything, it makes sense to me that selling it back to the owner, or giving it back, is the first step in order to be able to be in a position or perception to see meaning. And maybe I say this because when we are the owners, it's so hard to see meaning, because you're taking something personal. And like you always say, if you're taking something personal, then you're projecting that on everything else. Then everything else is also individual in its existence. So it seems like transience was kind of like the first step, and now right into transience we can sort of dive into this new concept that says nothing, because everything is passing, nothing belongs to you, therefore give it back right away. Every feeling, every thought, everything that you see, everything that's happening to you that seems so personal and that seems so painful or that seems so joyous, give it all back. Which I guess transitions into my question. It's the sentence that says, okay, sell it back to its true owner. That part makes sense to me. Give it back to the true owner. And I love that because the image that comes to my mind, I don't think Aliyat's here, but the image that comes to my mind is like when something lands on you, like a feeling or an event, sometimes it just seems so heavy that it just blocks your perception to ask for meaning. It's like, I don't even want to, almost like astaghfirullah, there's something that's saying, this is so heavy, how, like, I can't see meaning in it. Or if I see meaning, it's still so heavy that I don't even accept it because I didn't do that foundational step of selling it back first. And so if I sell it back, that load that was so heavy in my chest, if I, for example, throw it into the air, or if I let go of it, then I can see it as something out there. And then I can say, oh, I wonder what the meaning of you is, because it's no longer something that's I'm owning or taking personal or heavy on my chest, or that's a burden. And so when I do that selling back or like letting go, it's like something that I can see now. Oh, there it is. It's not something inside of me. Oh, I wonder what the meaning of that is. And I can apply that to all different painful things happening, or, personal things that seems like it's happening. So now employ it on his behalf. I think the word employ, it kind of threw me off guard because we're selling something and then employ it. But maybe the word employ it, it's not like, you would employ a person to work for you or employ.
It's more like use it. You are using it anyway.
Okay. So yeah, I guess the employ it on his behalf. So now I'm imagining, for example, like something that was in my chest, but now I see out there like a balloon or something that is like, since I gave it back, I can actually see it from an outer body, not owning perspective. There's that feeling, there's that event, there's that person, there's that thing that happened. I'm no longer holding it in my chest so that it's heavy. Now, how do I, when I say employ it on his behalf, what comes to my mind is like through prayer, just, somehow through prayer, connect it to the owner, and not even having to solve it or do anything about it, but just acknowledge the fact that it belongs to the owner and almost like surrender it to his name, unless something else comes to mind for you.
Yeah, it's a very important point you touch on. Actually, it's, as you said, it's like the foundation which we start with. With Maha, we always talk about this, and she always emphasizes how there is always this need to go back to those foundational, I won't say here concept, but because it's a reality, it's something that we need to go through. And when you were talking, it reminded me of the breathing exercise. And breathing is because we breathe. It's like if you take a clock, you have various needles. Do you call them hands? Hands, are they hands? The clock has hands, right? So the seconds, you see it moving faster. So transients, for me personally, I become aware of transients the most through breathing, because breathing ends and starts again. Constantly, we can observe that. So when we do the breathing exercise and we intend to reflect on what's going on, this is breathing is happening. I become aware of the transients. Now, the more I become aware of the transients, the fact that we are reflecting is what you just mentioned, Sarah, is gives already that perspective, that distancing, when you can observe rather than, because there is a little bit of more awareness because of the intention to reflect. It's a gift. Because when we are not in that sitting and reflecting on our breathing, we are breathing, but without realizing, we take it for granted that we are breathing. And so that's it, nothing happens. But here, there is that awareness causes a little bit of distancing. Then we realize that how this phenomenon, this event of breathing is transient, something, it means there is activity going on and on again. It's not like I am breathing, full stop. No. It's something that requires some creativity, some power, something constantly. That's what it means, because if there is transience, it means there is a flow of things leaving. It means some things are replacing. If I inhale and exhale, it means something I am made to breathe again and again and again. The moment I start accepting or realizing that I am not breathing, something is happening to me and I'm not doing it, I'm not in control, then if I don't resist this and say, no, like, what was it? I have to go and do something else because I don't want to sit with that reality. That's why I always say, like, just like you tell a child, sit here for 5 minutes, finish this, we tell ourselves, our body, whatever, you sit here for 20 minutes and you want to eat, you will eat after. You want to do something, you will do everything after 20 minutes. And within that 20 minutes, when we sit with it, we realize that it is being done unto us. I am not in control. It is not mine. It means the realization that it is a trust. It is not mine, it is a trust. A trust means it is someone else, but given to my use right now. Then the more I sit there, the more I realize, when I make peace with that, I don't fight that reality, then I realize it's a trust. And then comes the decision, the intention to sell. Selling here means I have to actually acknowledge it is not mine. This is not mine. And the more I sit with the reality that it is not mine, within me, the reality that it is someone else's will, the awareness, because it's always there, but I was hiding it. When I take off the stories of hiding, the claims, the false claims that it's mine, or that I don't want to think about it, then the awareness that the inner knowingness that it is from somewhere else, from someone else, I sit with it, I can see that reality, or it becomes unveiled to me. It is uncovered, it is divulged, and that's why the new question would be, who is making me breathe? Who is it? And when I have that, so it's not necessarily a question that I ask, but it's a question, it's a curiosity, it's a need to know. And when I have that need to know, then I will start being present to whoever is making me breathe. I will feel something, a nearness in my heart, a love in my heart, someone who is sustaining my life, someone who is so close to me, whoever that one is who is breathing life into me, I'll find my heart, my soul, my spirit full of love and closeness to him. So this is the selling that's going on. Now, after that comes the employ it, means use it. Now, the more I sit with this reality, the more I internalize it, the more it becomes my normal by default reality, the more I am less likely to use it as I like. I don't like this, I like this, I do whatever I want, it's my life, or seek fulfillment or pleasure in ways that I imagine, or look at the neighbor, or look at what the trend is, or whatever. All those things disappear from my landscape of being, and it becomes, my focus becomes on this beloved one, this new friend, this who is closer to us than ourselves, this Rab, this. And now we are listening to his guidance, and we want to find the purpose of our life as he reveals unto us. And it is then that we start wondering, when we are told, read in the name of God who created, or like here, find the names of God in everything. Seek, it says the believers, they seek the face of God in everything. Then we start seeking the face of God in everything. When we face, if I feel this for my breathing, then I will start reflecting on my seeing, on my hearing, and I'll find that everywhere he is there. And this is going to be projected on the creation out there. And that's how I will be able to now read everything is in his name through the guidance of the Quran. It becomes easier, unless even this is what I am sharing is also guidance from the Quran. But I don't know if you see that I go from observing the transience of my breathing. The other side of transience is creativity, is givenness, is constant. Someone is constantly sustaining me, giving me, helping me. And so all the questions, when it felt like mine, I was like, what shall I do with it? It was all about having, scheduling my life around my wants and desires, and my still seeking peace and fulfillment, but looking for it in around the focus of the eye. The eye is like the center of my world. And that eye that is totally a fake eye, because I'm attributing to it things that don't belong to it. Now, without, very smoothly, in a very beautiful, smooth way. That's why that reflection is so important. When I sit there, I become more and more aware of that someone else, something else is breathing into me. Life is being infused into me. And the more I sit there, the more there is awe, there is love, there is worship, there is, and that awe, that love is the love for those beautiful names that I am tasting in that moment. I become in the presence of God. And so instead of what am I doing here, who am I, or something, the questions becomes, who is breathing life into me, who is making me see, who is making me this and that. It becomes all about knowing him. And then wherever we look, within and without, we start seeing his beautiful names, his countenance. And that process, that breakthrough, that turning is the selling, is where I realize that it is a trust, that it is not mine, it is a trust. And I made the decision, the choice, the intentional choice to accept that reality, because I may realize it and I don't want to accept it, and so I don't live accordingly. I don't cultivate it. I have to cultivate it so it becomes my new reality. Inshallah, I hope it made sense.
Yes, mashallah, thank you.
And so then if there is something specific, use, don't look at this or look at this. That is like the limits. Like, okay, like in eating and drinking, don't eat this and don't drink alcoholic beverages, for instance. Yes, but like when I am drinking non-alcoholic beverages, when I'm drinking water, how am I drinking it? And in the name of God, selling that drinking, that action to God. That's what's usually missing in the landscape of Islamic teaching. Everyone is talking about, don't drink this. And then people think that Islam is about do's and not do's. No, those do's and not do's are there as the outer limit, because once you cross that limit, it becomes destructive. But when I don't cross that limit, it does not mean that I am safe, because shirk is also haram. And shirk is another, it's like if the limits, take it like a two-dimensional space, and the limits are the outer limits. If it's a circle, let's say it's the circumference of the circle is inside is the do's, outside is the don'ts. And actually what is left, what you can do is so huge. What we can do is very small. But take it as a third dimension is the shirk or tawheed. Shirk, disconnected from God. It is mine. Tawheed, selling back the trust to God. It is a trust. That implies to everything, whether everything that we think is halal, because everything that is halal is only halal if it is not shirk, done in a shirky way. Because shirk is like putting alcohol in halal food. And even that halal food is a misuse of the word halal. It's people think that if the food is halal, then all the action is halal. No, I can eat halal food in a shirky way. And everything, yes, of course, there is the intention of eating halal. That part is okay. But then there needs also the intention of how to eat that food as in the name of God, and be grateful only to God. If I may say, it may not be very clear, just because this halal haram concept is so taken as if it's the heart of everything. Yes, it is the heart if you add shirk to it. And harama, it says in the Quran, God forbids shirk. And shirk is potentially in every every action, inner and outer, in every interaction, in everything, we can be in a state of connected or disconnected. In a state of ghafla, when we are in ghafla, potentially we are open to shirk. And so we want to have more and more time when we are consciously connected, so that when we are disconnected, it doesn't last long. So we can come back quickly, so that more and more, by default, our way of living in the world is not in shirk and in ghafla, but in ihsan, inshallah. He says, but if you, if you sell your intellect to its true owner and employ it on his behalf, it means use it on his behalf in the way he guides us to use it, then it will rise to being a dominical guide. Is Murshid Rabbani. It's a guide from the Rabb that guides us back to our Rabb, preparing its owner for eternal bliss. Shall we stop here? I mean, if you have questions or comments, please go ahead. But like next week, we can go on for the eye and the tongue, and we can give more examples, inshallah. Because I think this third prophet is very important. Like it's like the key. And remember that it reminds me of in the Quran we are told, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا, which is in Surah Al-Shams, Surah 91, I think. So it's few ayat in the middle. Consider the nafs, the soul, and what has perfected it and inspired it. And he inspired it with depravity and God consciousness. It means it has both potential. He has succeeded who purifies it. The one who purifies the soul from the false beliefs and assumptions. He has succeeded, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, and he is lost, وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ, the one who buries it. It means burying something in darkness. Doesn't want to, he's doing the opposite. There is also the other part that comes to my mind is Surah At-Teen, that starts with the Teen with Zaytun. We are told لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ السَّافِلِينَ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. So we have created a human being in the best of forms, in the best of conformation. ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ السَّافِلِينَ. Then we, how do you say, we ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ السَّافِلِينَ.
Returned him back, or
yeah, we reduced him to the lowest of the low, except those who believe and do good deeds. So we are created in the best form, but there is always the potential of going to the lowest of the low. If you don't want to go to the lowest of the low, you have to be in a state of believing and acting accordingly. That's why he said, employ it accordingly. Use your reason, your intellect, as you have been shown, you have been guided. And it's the same in the other one. When I've seen وَمَا سَوَّاهَا, like the self or the soul has been created with inspiration and depravity, and you get to choose. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, the one who purifies it succeeds, and everyone is for success, but everyone is looking for success out there while the self is staying in that bubble of darkness, and while claiming false ownership, while not acknowledging the trust, and it's not only about acknowledging it. Once we acknowledge it, if we are sincere, the acknowledgement is itself a process of selling back, a process of surrender. How do you say? Give it back to teslim, the amana, the trust, back to its owner. And part of that is to use it in the way it's supposed to be used. And lo and behold, the way it's supposed to be used is what we long for, that fulfillment, that peace, that happiness, that achievement, that success that everyone longs for. That's how we've been created. There is only one way to achieve it, is to acknowledge the reality and live accordingly, surrender to the reality and live accordingly. Otherwise, وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا, and he is lost, whoever hides it in darkness. Subhanallah. That's why I keep saying at least twice a day, morning and evening, inshallah, if we make it into a habit, a ritual, then it becomes easier to start spreading it. At least 20 minutes, reflecting. And when I say breathing, you start with breathing, then you can do it with your hearing, your anything. And then when we do that internally, then when we are faced with something in our life, like you see something like the sunset, then we won't just say, oh, even like Muslims, we say, oh, mashallah, but actually I said mashallah, but actually I did not feel mashallah. I'm just saying it as word. It just means, wow, very beautiful. It's the equivalent almost, because it's not used intentionally. But when we use those words intentionally, they remind us to pause and stay with something amazing is happening. A miracle is happening. The biggest miracle is something is setting out there, there is color out there, and lo and behold, it has an impact on me. How is this possible? The one who creates that thing there is also my creator. And he is attracting my attention to this, and he is making me prostrate before the awesomeness of his creation. Subhanallah, MashaAllah, Tabarakallah. So now we say it, but while milking that awe, staying with it, celebrating it, feeling it, that awe is the awe of feeling in the presence of God, in the presence of his beautiful names, seeing, witnessing his power, his beauty, his creativity, his countenance. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Anyone wants to end with anything, inshallah?
I like the Jazakallah khair, Yamina. I like Sarah said, I like the idea of the foundation because I've been mesmerized by the word Iqra. and now, like, you know, just like Sarah and like Ma was saying, I feel that we need to keep reminding ourselves of that. This is the foundation. Like, you know, once to read is to read, like, you know, I think I ended up my concentration to read everything as a sign. And then like now, and got, like, you know, Bismi Rabbika has a different meaning now. Like, you know, the Bismi Rabbika now, it's like it's happening upon me. Like, you know, so it's not out there created by God. Like before it was out there created by God, acknowledge that's created by God. But now I see it as a more continuous verb. Like it's happening upon me right now. Like this that's happening upon me that I'm receiving, the connection between me and that beautiful thing out there, the feeling I feel for this that I like, or the feeling for, so it's like it's a continuous verb versus before I think I had it as a static, a little bit more static. So jazakallah khair.
When it's static, it means I am still not aware of the trust. It's still everything is mine, even the reading is mine. And that's why we keep going back to forgetting. It's not easy to remember because if everything is mine, then that thing out there is not an area. It exists on its own because I project my inner perception, self-perception onto my perception of the world. So it starts with at the same time as I'm reading out there, I have to be doing the inner self-reflection, the selling, the letting go of the false claim that it is mine, the tezkiyah. Only to that extent I will remember. And to that extent, I will truly read, as you said, like it's happening onto me right now. It's not something out there. Otherwise, it will be always something out there. And it will be always me at the center of the world. Things are out there when they don't bother me directly. But if they bother me directly, then it becomes, I am unhappy. Why is this happening to me? And again, I won't be able to find the answer because the question is, all those questions are based on false premises and assumptions. Subhanallah.
Sister
I can
Yamina.
also add that oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Yes,
no.
go ahead. Yeah, one of you start, inshallah.
This is Amina here. Salam alaikum, sisters. And I think there must be a brother or two there. One of the things that's important for me to remember is when I catch myself in a thought that I'm going, oh no, where'd that come from? Or just not paying attention, and I'm human and that happens. But it's developing that quality of compassion so that I don't turn that energy in on myself. So I just find that I just wanted to share that ability to have some self-empathy, to pause and have compassion and remember that I'm in process, that I'm a human being, and that sometimes the mistakes I made or am making are places of learning. It's that turning that corner back to that remembrance. But like I said, in that process, not to turn in on myself for something I've done that maybe I have some shame around or something I've thought. So
The
to
key
just
word is the
polishing the heart with with compassion. Thank you.
The key word is being in the process. Once we are in that process, once we are in that path, then alhamdulillah, yeah, all that becomes valid. Because if we are not set yet on the process, then then usually we won't have compassion on, because we don't have that awareness. Yeah.
Yes, and yeah, and thank you for saying that. So,
Sister Amina, what do you mean by turn in against myself?
well, for myself, what that would mean is maybe I catch myself having an unkind thought or a cranky thought, or just a richly human thought, and if I can catch it and say astaghfirullah, or just hold my heart and take a breath and pause for a minute, that's good. But there are other times in my life when I turn in and I feel guilty, or I have a feeling of maybe some self-loathing. I have unkind thinking toward myself for having that thought, feel some guilt. That's turning in, and that's destructive. And it's part of the human process. So for me, the medicine might be to just pause and either have a little humor or take a deep breath. And also just to sit with that feeling. I think the very act that we are praying, that we're doing, I'm doing my best to be on a path, that sometimes I know I always call them the unloved parts of myself, their old habits. They're going to come up, and they're coming up to be recognized and healed. That, for me, that's part of the process, that there's things that are no places that are no longer necessary for me to go within myself. So in that process of the path becoming a little bit straighter within, there's an acceptance of those pieces, whether it's saying astaghfirullah or some self-forgiveness, and then if I can, continuing. Sometimes in mindfulness practice, they call it training the puppy. And so if you have a puppy, you train the puppy to sit, right? And be present for a moment. So I like that image. Does that help?
One time, inshallah, we should discuss guilt, because I was going to ask you whether guilt is bad, but maybe we should discuss this at some time in details, inshallah.
Absolutely. I think if I can say something briefly, there's something called compassionate communication, and they talk about it. It's natural that we have regrets, or we might say, I wish I didn't do that. I regret that I said that. And that's, to me, is a kinder and a more wonderful way to deal with guilt. Guilt, again, is something that can turn on one's heart. I'll use myself. God can turn it in on my heart. So I have to find what resources might work for me so that it doesn't sit there too long. Otherwise, for me, it would take me down that road of depression. And so that's a familiar road, and I don't need to go down that road. I have different resources now. But just, you might want to think, how does it feel to say, instead of feeling guilty about something, just going, I regret, or I wish I'd done that differently.
It's a messenger, like any other feeling. They are messengers, they are created for,
Yes.
with purpose to show us something on the way.
So I guess the next step is maybe intensive training and practice. Because when we understand something theoretically, and I am big on theory, don't get me wrong, I'm not your most concrete practical person at all. However, because this is a perspective that we need to live with every minute and every day, it does require quite a bit of training and intensive training.
If I can just add here what came to my mind that beautifully complements Amina's comment is that the 20-minute, mashallah, the 20-minute meditation homework that's been repeated again and again and again and again is something important to do, which shows the repetition shows how important it is. It now with this dimension added to it, I know from experience, like when trying to set the timer and do it and just say alhamdulillah, 25 million thoughts will come different to my mind. And it was almost like I would just listen to them and like hear what they're saying and just be like, shh, like the way you would talk to a noisy kid when you're trying to focus on something that you have to do. And so there was something missing then by saying shh. Even if I compassionately say shush, I could just be like, okay, yeah, I hear you, but not right now. But
Could I
now,
make
what was that, Dr. Yamina?
Go ahead, Sarah, finish your thought.
So now what comes to my mind, so set the timer for 20 minutes with the intention of noticing the breath. You'll notice a million other things other than the breath. But now with this training, intensive training, like Maha's saying, it's with every thought that comes, you get to notice it first, like Dr. Yamina said, and then sell it back. And that is so liberating because it's like you get to notice all the things that you were holding onto as yours, sell it back to the true owner by just as soon as you notice it, it's already one layer of distance, like Dr. Yamina says. And then selling it back to the true owner means, okay, now that I'm noticing it, it's not me, it's something that comes. And then once you do that aspect of it, you can decide, you know, like Dr. Yamina says and Dr. Ali repeats too, whether it's true or false. You can, because now it's so clear what's in you, what you can see it so clearly when you do the 20-minute meditation, because you're laying down and you're just watching things just happening that are really sort of distracting you from being present with the breath. And like I said, for me, I'll be lucky to get 3 or 4 minutes of like actual presence with my breath and this like transcendent surrender feeling of bliss after 20 minutes, after 16 minutes of like struggling with this warfare of sounds and just being like, shh, okay, no, there's not time for this right now. So now I think that if we set the timers for 20 minutes, inshallah, with the intention of listening to the breath and with the other thoughts that come, it can be a selling back practice, inshallah.
Sarah, may I ask you,
oh, go ahead.
if you don't mind, for everyone, could you explain what your understanding of selling back is? Because it sounds that it has hit a chord for you, and whenever this happens, it's useful for everyone.
Yeah, so mashallah, during the halaqah, I pointed out that it struck a chord for me because I was saying, I don't know if you were present earlier, Maha, but you know, I was researching how not to take things personal that happen. And like, I never actually got anywhere with that. But for a long time, I've been trying to, you know, solve this mystery of how not to take things personally. And so when Dr. Yamina was reading and was reviewing this, every single thing is a trust. Your feelings, your senses, everything in the spirit, outer senses, inner senses are all a trust. And we're being told by the compassionate one, sell it back to the true owner. As if you don't, you will feel so burdened with this because it's not yours. So give it back. And for me, it just spoke to all those things that I was holding on to, my regret, my feelings, my hurt, my pain. Oh, they're not even mine. So this whole thing is not even mine. So give it back. And when I heard give it back, I was like, I would love to. Oh my God, it's been so heavy. Like, thank you. Where can I do? Because there's such a desire to just get it off of my chest, please. And now this is an invitation. And it's almost like a command. Give it back. It doesn't belong to you. And it was just like, hadir, an Arabic word that means like, yes, like gladly.
Sarah, when you said like, just give it back, what came to my mind is like, even those, those burdensome things in our life, because we identify with them so much and we hold on to them, sometimes we're like, even in our conversation, it's like you say like I'm suffering from this, and we're like, just like we compete and show off with knowledge and wealth and things, we also do it for fear and suffering and pain, and subhanallah, like we hold on so much to it, as it's like someone tells me something painful and I say, oh yes, I understand, and I start telling about my painful things as well, like it's not only you, I also have all these things. SubhanAllah, it's very, very interesting psychology, because it's not because it feels good, it's because it's part of who we think we are. So it's our identity, it's my identity. But it's a fake identity. But again, we have to start from the beginning. When Maha was saying like this intensive about guilt or anything, if someone came from nowhere, never went through this, not theoretically, but actually practiced on a daily level, then we can't start talking about specifics like guilt or regret or something else. We have to have some common, how do you say, practice something at least, inshallah. Someone else was going to share something.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Yamina, I struggle with forgiveness, not towards others, towards myself. I've wronged myself, and I know I wronged myself, so I struggle with this issue. How much of it is actually, it was my own doing, and what part of it was in my destiny. So I kind of am trying to understand. I guess if I tell myself اللهم إني ظلمت نفسي وأنت خير الغافرين والراحمين, if I tell that to myself, then I'm taking responsibility for it. And I feel like, okay, I did it. I'm the one who made the mistake. I'm not going to sit there and say, well, Allah made me make this mistake. So, but in the same time, we're learning, we don't own anything. Everything is through Allah. So,
can we stop there?
I'm sorry,
but
what?
Can we stop there? Taking
okay, sure.
When we say we are taking responsibility, we are already, if I already load it with a particular meaning, it may take me off to a totally different direction. Taking responsibility doesn't mean making a list. I did this, to this point is mine, to this point is not mine, and things like that. Taking responsibility means I am aware that I have shortcomings that have maybe aggravated some situations. And I don't have to know which, how much, and all that, because so what? Because I don't know. The whole thing is taking responsibility means I don't know. It's not under my control. The outcome is not under my control. And so taking responsibility is taking responsibility to sell the trust back. I take responsibility. I forgot that it was a trust. It means now I will make an effort to remember that this life and everything is a trust. I make an effort, and the more I realize it is a trust, it becomes easier to sell it back. So it's not about, I take responsibility. Let me calculate how much I owe you, how much I give back, how much. It's not in that sense. Taking responsibility means I take responsibility for my forgetting that everything was a trust. And what does it mean? It means now I will make an effort to remember that it is a trust. It's not like going back. I can't go back in the future and change, in the past and change it, but I can do something about now, and the now will take care of the future, inshallah. It is my dua. Yes, the outcome is from God, but God will create according to my intention. If I go and apply to medical school, I'm more likely to, and go to the medical school every day, then no wonder I become a medical doctor. But if I go to engineering school or some other school, then something else will happen. So I'm taking responsibility for the outcome. I didn't like the outcome. Astaghfirullah, I start from the beginning. And here we're not talking about like which school I was. I was in the school of forgetting, of when I forget, I'm more likely to go into shirk. Even if I have the best life, I will never find that inner peace and fulfillment. So now I know that if I am not in peace in my life and content, it means something, my attitude somewhere is off. So I go back and find out where it is. I forgot that everything is a trust. Now I will make every effort to remember that. For the past, astaghfirullah. And even like the ayah says, if you make tawbah and tabu wa amanu wa amilu salihat, and believe and act accordingly, make good deeds, then يُبَدِّلُ اللَّهُ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ حَسَنَاتٍ. Their bad deeds, Allah will transform them into beautiful deeds. Like, even because that experience from the past is going to have an impact on my who I am today. I'll become, for instance, more aware of how this shirk, this forgetting the reality, this appropriating the trust to myself, how destructive it is. That's what it means, taking responsibility. Taking responsibility doesn't mean going back in the past and one by one. It's not like I owe some debts to my neighbors and I go one by one, I say, how many dollars do I owe you? That's not how it is. It's much easier than that. That's where the compassion comes in, where Sister Yamina always emphasizes that compassion. There's no need to be harder on ourselves and bear a burden that Allah has not burdened us with, inshallah. Does it make sense?
Yamina, why not? Why not make a list and apologize to the neighbors?
No. If the neighbor is, I'm talking about between me and my attitude towards God. Now, in that path, I realized that I believe that I wronged someone, then by all means, go and do it. It'll become easy then to do it. Then I won't say, oh, to take responsibility, I have to go and apologize to everyone. Once I'm on that path, then I won't have to make an effort to apologize. Apologizing to that person will be my new way of being. It will flow through me. It will be made easy unto me.
I think that, yeah, the key is the self-compassion, and that is the part that I struggle with. So I think that's
Let's
the
maybe
key.
discuss this
That's the
next
key,
week.
right?
Inshallah.
All right.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And inshallah, we'll continue with the 6th word next week.
Inshallah.
Take care.
Yeah,
Assalamu
hope
alaikum.
everyone had a wonderful time in Eid, and it was a blessed time. So may Allah, inshallah.